Hi guys, this is Miss Hanrahan. Welcome to your very first Philip Classroom video. Today's March 10th, 2014, and we're going to be talking about metric measures today. This is lesson 15-2. We're actually going to do 15-1 tomorrow, but let's go ahead and get started. Today we're talking about the metric system. The metric system is a system of measurement that most of the world uses actually. So you'll notice that those few countries and areas in red actually use a different system of measurement, which we're going to talk about tomorrow. But for today's lesson, we're talking about all those areas in gray which use this system of measurement, the metric system. Now, the first unit of measure is length. You're measuring something from one end to another. Now, there's lots of different ways that you can measure, especially if you're going to measure different sizes of things. So, for example, if you're going to measure something really, really tiny, like the width of a bobby pin or the size of one of the chains of your necklace, you're going to use millimeters. But as you are going to measure things that are larger, you're going to want a larger unit of length. Centimeters, use that other side of your ruler, the side that we maybe aren't quite as familiar with, that has all these teeny tiny lines on it. These teeny tiny lines are actually called millimeters, which is what we would be measuring above. Now, these larger tick marks with the numbers below are measuring the centimeters, which is about the length of a ladybug. The next size up would be a decimeter, which is about the size of your hand. Deci actually means 10, so it's an easy way to remember because you have 10 fingers. It's also about the size of a soup can. A meter is even larger. It's about the size of a kindergartner or first grader. A garden snake and the length of a golden retriever from the tip of its nose to the tip of its tail. And finally, we have a kilometer, which is represented by the top of the Grand Canyon all the way to the bottom. So essentially, if you took 10 of these chain links from the necklace and lined them up one next to each other, it would be the size of a ladybug. If you took 10 ladybugs and lined them up one next to each other, it would be the size of a soup can. If you took 10 soup cans, stacked them up, it would be about the size of a kindergartner. And if you took 1,000 kindergartners and stacked them on top of each other, you would have the depth of the Grand Canyon. Now you'll notice that every single one of these units of length is represented by an abbreviation. So millimeter is represented with an mm, centimeter is represented with a cm, decimeter is dm, meter is just m, and kilometer is km, all of which are lowercase. So again, these are the different conversions. Conversions are when you switch one unit of length to another. So we talked about having those 10 chain links that are stacked right next to each other, which is about 1 centimeter or 1 ladybug. 10 ladybugs, or centimeters, would equal 1 decimeter. 10 decimeters, or soup cans, would equal 1 kindergartner, or meter. And 1,000 kindergartners, or 1,000 meters, equals 1 kilometer. You can also see this above. If you notice on the ruler that there are 10 millimeters in between each centimeter. So like I said, conversions is when you change one unit from another. So it's kind of like using time. When you have seconds and minutes and hours, you have to switch from one to the next. So for example, 1 minute is the same thing as 60 seconds, and 60 seconds is the same thing as 1 minute. 1 hour is the same thing as 60 minutes, so 1 hour would be a whole lot of seconds. When we're converting units of measurement, whether it's length or mass or capacity, which we're also going to talk about, when you're finding the missing large unit, you always divide. When you're finding the missing small unit, you are always going to multiply. So let's try a couple. Let's take a smaller unit like a millimeter, and let's try to figure out what the larger centimeter unit would be. So if I have 420 of those teeny tiny chain links, how many centimeters would that be? So if we're going from a small unit to a large unit, we have to divide. We take the 420, we divide it by 10 because we know that 10 millimeters equals 1 centimeter. So 20 millimeters would equal 2, 30 millimeters would equal 3, so on and so forth. So if we divide this big number here by 10, we end up with 42 centimeters. Now this time we're going to go with a larger unit and try to exchange it into a smaller unit. So kilometers are a lot larger than meters. The length of the Grand Canyon, or the depth of the Grand Canyon, is a lot deeper than the size of a kindergartner. Okay, so to do that, we have to multiply. We're going to remember that 1,000 meters is equal to 1 kilometer. So we multiply 552 times 1,000. Remember to add your 3 zeros, and you end up with 552,000 meters. Now, sometimes you're going to have to do more than one step. On our conversion chart, we didn't have how many centimeters were in 1 meter. So you're going to have to kind of figure out a few steps along the way. If we're trying to figure out how many centimeters are in 3 meters, first we need to think. If there are 10 centimeters in 1 decimeter, and there's 10 decimeters in 1 meter, then 100 centimeters equals 1 meter. Now, sometimes that's easier to think about using the symbols or the pictures. So think about it. If we have 10 ladybugs and that equals 1 soup can, you would need 10 soup cans to equal 1 kindergartner. That means you would need 100 ladybugs to equal 1 kindergartner. So if we know that 100 centimeters is equal to 1 meter, 200 centimeters has to be equal to 2 meters, which means 300 centimeters must be equal to 3 meters. To do that in a much easier way, just multiply 100 centimeters times 3. You end up with 300 centimeters. All right, last couple. We have 500 centimeters, a smaller unit, changing into a larger unit. One-step conversion, it's 57. So you definitely, if you haven't already, want to write down how many millimeters are in a centimeter, how many centimeters are in a decimeter. You want to have that in front of you. If you're changing from a larger unit to a smaller unit, remember, you are going to have to multiply. Make sure you write that down. If we have 3 decimeters and we're changing it into centimeters, you're going to multiply by 10. 3 times 10 is 30. All right, go ahead and try this one. We have a smaller unit changing into a larger unit, but this one is more than one step. So if you want to take your time and pause this video, go ahead and you can try to solve this. But I want you to keep in mind, if 10 millimeters equals 1 centimeter, so 10 chain links is the same as a ladybug, and 10 ladybugs equals the length of your hand, then you would need 100 chain links to equal the length of your hand. $100 times 5 gives you 500. All right, let's talk about our next measurement style or unit. This is called mass. Mass is the amount of matter in an object. So there's only two to remember in the metric system. The first is grams, which is much smaller. A dollar is a gram. The cap of a pen is about a gram. And those thumb drives that we talked about earlier, that's about a gram. Now, kilograms are actually much larger. It's about the size of a cantaloupe or a jar of peanut butter or even a bag of sugar. Now, when we talk units of mass, there's only one conversion for you to remember. 1 gram is the same thing as 1,000. No, that's not right. Switch them. I wrote it down wrong, guys. 1 kilogram is the same thing as 1 gram. Let me go ahead and switch. I don't want to confuse you any further. There we go. All right. Much better. Okay, so 1 kilogram is the same thing as 1,000 grams. So if we have 6,000 grams, how many kilograms would that be? To find a larger unit, so we're going from grams, that dollar bill, to a kilogram, a cantaloupe, you have to divide. So 6,000 divided by 1,000, get rid of those zeros, equals 6. To find small units, you multiply. So you're going to do the same thing again. 8 kilograms, we're looking for that smaller unit. We're looking for grams. So 8 times 1,000 equals 8,000. All right, our last unit is capacity. Capacity measures the amount of space a container can hold. So typically we use this when we're talking about liquid. And again, you only have one conversion to remember. 1 liter is the same as 1,000 milliliters. So it's a very similar conversion as when we were talking about mass. All right, so milliliters are much smaller than a liter. A milliliter is about the amount of ink that you have in a pen or in an eyedropper, or not in that cup of coffee, but about the amount of liquid that that straw could hold. A liter, however, is much larger. It's about the size of a large water bottle or shampoo bottle, and it's half of a large 2-liter bottle of soda. To find small units, again, you multiply. So if you start with 12 liters, you're going to multiply by 1,000, and you will get 12,000 milliliters. To find large units, you divide. That doesn't change. 7,000 milliliters divided by 1,000 equals 7 liters. All right, guys, that's it. So remember your whisk. You watched the video, check. Summarize what you watched. Did you take notes or did you just watch the video? If you didn't take notes, make sure you go back and do that. You get to use them on your test, so it's really important that you do that. And then if you need to rewatch the whole video or maybe just certain parts of it for understanding, please do so. Be proactive with your learning. Finally, you need to make sure you ask a question. If there are more questions that you still have, you're still confused, and you watch this video several times, please write them down and bring them to class. Be specific so that I can help you when you get there tomorrow. If you don't have any questions, then write down a problem for us to solve in the classroom based on what you just watched. Make sure you have the answer ready. It can be about units of length, units of mass, or units of capacity. So I hope you enjoyed this flip video, and I will see you tomorrow.